Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy 101 Slickrock. We'll be breaking it down for you today with the final preseason episode of Fantasy 101. This is a series of shows in the Old Man Squad Sports Network that we're airing here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Slickrock is getting everybody ready to start this fantasy campaign with shows specifically geared toward those of you who are playing in your first or second year of fantasy basketball. This is an opportunity to really settle in, make sure you have some success and some fun playing this game that we love so much right out of the chute. Don't worry about me. This show ain't about me. This show is about you and Slickrock and the waiver wire today. Today, they're breaking down how to use the waiver wire once that season gets going. You got to know this now before that first night so you don't get caught with your head in the sand. Friends, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. They've got every stat, every matchup, every breakdown, live odds and spreads you can bet on right in the middle of ball games, and the largest catalog of odds on everything: football, baseball, hockey, basketball, political props. It's all there. When the games are over, BetOnline has more for you with an online casino. Play some blackjack, some poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slide games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here. Enough of this nonsense. Let's get you ready to play some fantasy basketball. Here's Slickrock.
What's up, everybody? My name is Slickrock. Welcome to the final episode of Fantasy NBA 101, the show where we look at not only how to play, but how to feel successful while playing in your first or second year of daily fantasy NBA. Find me on Twitter at Slickrock, SLICKRACH. This show is being proudly put out by the Old Man Sports Squad Network. Now, before I get started, geez, this is only my 6th episode. Y'all, podcasting, not as easy as I thought. Not that I thought it was going to be extremely easy hopping into it, but it is way more time consuming than I thought it would be. I just wanted to let y'all know that so you can shout out those great podcast hosts that you all listen to on a daily basis. I definitely want to take a second to say thanks to Dan, thanks to the Old Man Sports Squad, thanks to everybody who puts this stuff out for our enjoyment. I really have gotten a lot of new perspective doing this. I've enjoyed it a lot, but I'm also going to be okay with taking a step back after this for just a little while. So, anyways, let's get right to it. Last episode, we looked at common mistakes. On this episode, we're going to look at how we can play the wire, which means how we're going to use the waiver wire to maximize value throughout the season. Let's get it. First of all, congratulations, everybody. We did it. We made it through another drafting season. Now what, right? I try to think about fantasy sports in terms of a real-world equivalent, and I think that a good comparison would be somebody running for a political position. Drafting is like that campaigning portion. You spend time canvassing, you go door to door, you speak at events, you do meet and greets. Then, all of a sudden, you're elected into this position, and you have a brand new job that has nothing to do with all of those skills you had previously. You're now writing legislation, you're meeting on boards, you're making decisions that will affect you, your neighbors, your city, right? Drafting is like running for office. The season that we're about to embark on is what happens once you're elected. And an important part of that is making sure that you play the wire. When we're playing the wire, we're talking about a mix of strategy, timing, and knowledge of all sorts of different player trends. Remember that when I talk about playing the wire, I mean picking up players that are on the waiver and dropping guys at the end of your team that maybe are not worth rostering. First thing I want you to do is make sure that you stay informed on those injuries and rest days that happen throughout the season. Check those injury reports. Players can be ruled out or rested at short notice, especially because the NBA season is so long. Barely anyone makes it through all 82 games. So check your lineup, make sure that anyone who is rested or not there is not in your active lineup, especially if there's another player there that you could have in that spot. If you want to, you can think about, too, targeting their backups or secondary players that are going to get more minutes in those games. Also, pay attention to those back-to-back games. Some veterans, key players, older stars, whatever it may be, are more likely to rest on the second night of a back-to-back game. Think about Al Horford, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid. Next, when looking at the wire, think about targeting those role players with increased minutes. NBA teams talk about that next man up mentality. When a starter is out, look for those role players who are going to receive those increased minutes. Dan likes to put out his burger board. These are injury replacement guys who are going to be taking over those big minutes if somebody in front of them is out. It can be for one game, it could be for many months, so keep your eye on that. Also, think about hot streaks. Players get on hot streaks and they might get more playing time. They're shooting well, they're filling up the stats in other categories, rebounds, assists, steals. They can be really valuable short-term adds. It tends to be a similar type of player. You're going to see Jordan Clarkson and Norm Powell pop off several weeks this year. Try to ride them while they're hot, but don't be surprised if it's a short-lived experience. Something else to consider when playing the wire is how to exploit matchups that are happening in the NBA for the coming weeks. Check defensive matchups. Who ranks at the bottom of the league as a defensive team? Last year, it was the Jazz, the Hornets, and the Wizards. If you see a top 100 type player who's going to go up against any of those bottom feeder teams, they might be worth picking up. You might know that they're going to cook Poole, they're going to cook LaMelo, they're going to cook Keontae George. Also, check for those fast-paced games. If you have a player that you like and you know they're going to be playing the Pacers or the Spurs or the Wizards, give them a run. Fast-paced games mean more possessions, mean more fantasy points. It can really boost those top 100 guys up into top 75 type players for a short-term period, and it's definitely worth picking them up. Something else I find pretty useful is knowing coaches' tendencies across the NBA. Who are the coaches that play their guys big minutes? Obviously, we know about Tibbs. The New York Knicks are going to get run into the ground. Someone you might not think about as much, though, would be Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings. Last season, Fox and Sabonis were both in the top 11 for minutes per game. On the other hand, you have the Phoenix Suns, who this year have a new coach coming in, Mike Budenholzer. He tends to play his guys less minutes. That means that for Booker and Durant, who are up there in that top echelon of minutes, I could see those minutes dropping by 3 minutes per game, which could be good over the entire season. Maybe it keeps them fresh, but from a day-to-day basis, that means that their fantasy numbers will probably not be exactly what they were. Less minutes, less usage, less numbers. Also, think about those rising rookies and new acquisitions. Pay attention to players who are earning more minutes due to their performance and productions, and maybe they haven't caught the eye of most fantasy managers. This again could be closer to silly season when people are getting shut down, but it's definitely something to monitor. Next up, we got to be ready for those late swaps. Stay active before game time. Late news is super common. You're going to see a player label which is GTD, meaning game time decision. That can mean that you don't know if somebody is in or out until minutes before the game, so be ready to adjust those lineups last minute. You also want to use those bench spots wisely. If a player again is listed as a game time decision, you want to be ready to move them on or off your bench depending on their last minute status. If you want to take playing the wire to the next level, you might want to start monitoring usage rates and advanced stats for individual players. When we're talking about usage rate, it means a stat that shows how much a player is involved when they're on the court. High usage players get more scoring, more assists, and more rebounding opportunities. Another thing to consider are fantasy points per minute. Even if a player isn't getting a ton of minutes, if they're highly efficient, they could deliver great value even in their limited role, but especially if they get an increased role. These tend to be centers. Somebody we've talked about in recent years is Daniel Gafford, who is a perfect example of this. This next piece of advice is something I maybe should have mentioned first. That is, timing is everything. Early pickups are key. You need to make sure you are acting fast when news comes through. If you find out that somebody is injured and they have somebody behind them who could be a top 50 kind of guy with that role, you want to make sure that you are first to picking them up. Make sure you are on social media and have your notifications turned on for Shams, for Underdog NBA, for Dan. I mean, for me, you're not going to follow that stuff. I'm following these other guys and figuring out what my own moves are. So, staying in the know is huge. If, for example, Joel Embiid goes down, you need to know, I need to check, is Andre Drummond available? Is he not? Because if he is, pick him up. He's going to get you 13 points, 15 rebounds, a steal and a block, terrible free throw percentage, good field goal percentage, couple turnovers. That's a useful line. That's somebody you want to have on your team. I also briefly wanted to touch on streaming. Stream those players that have those favorable matchups or schedule advantages. Look for teams that have 4 games per week. If there's a top 100 guy with 4 games, you probably want to get that person on your team, and you can ditch off the guy you had the previous week who now only has 2 games. So streaming those can be huge advantages for your weekly matchup. And last but not least, make sure you are using the Old Man Sports Squad Discord. Do it. We're there to talk with you. We're there to answer questions. We're there to talk about, does this player make sense? Does that player make sense? Whatever it may be. So use the resources you have available to you, which right now is the Old Man Sports Squad Discord. There's a ton of people and a ton of great conversations going on there. Make sure you log in and get your questions answered by me, by Dan, by everyone else who's there, plugging in and having a great time. All right, everyone, that'll do it. We made it. Fantasy NBA 101. That was 6 episodes of me trying to get you all ready for this upcoming season. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you're feeling a bit more ready to go. Now, because I'm not putting these out weekly from here on out doesn't mean that I'm not available. Again, I say this every episode. I love having these conversations. I want to hear what's going well for you. I want to hear what you're struggling with. And I'm happy to tell you the same for me, right? I'm in this old man squad draft right now where I think I made some dumb moves in the middle because I got caught the other night thinking, why am I so into punting? Let me try to build a well-rounded team. And now I'm looking at it like, wait, I had this great guard build and I spent 2 middle round picks on Kessler and Gobert. Is that the right move? Is it not? I don't know. Maybe it'll do all right. Maybe the season will start and I'll end up in 9th place out of the 12th. It doesn't matter. It's all just for fun, right? So please, check out the Old Man Sports Squad. Come find me on social at Slickrock. I've had a blast with y'all. Thanks for listening to it. Thanks again to everybody out there. Hey, we did it. Let's hop into the season. Good luck to everybody. Stay attuned to it. Keep up on your squad. And again, tell me how you're doing. All right, I'll check y'all later.
That was it, ladies and gentlemen. Slickrock bringing you to the finish line here in Fantasy 101. I am so grateful to Slickrock for putting these 6 episodes together. It made for awesome weekend bonus content on the Old Man Squad YouTube page, on the Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball audio feed, because everybody's getting an opportunity in these. And I love that it's so welcoming, because one thing that we have to make sure we're doing here in the fantasy basketball community is being welcoming people into the fold who want to learn how to play. Don't come in and hit them with what I do all the time, which is, adjusts bifocals and digging deep into the true nerdery of it all. There has to be a simplicity element. And I know that's what I try to do with my podcast, simplify fantasy basketball so that someone who only has a half an hour a week or an hour a week to mess with their stuff instead of 40 or 50 hours a week or whatever it is that some of us are doing on this, those folks can compete too. Slickrock, he got you there. So hopefully those of you who have been enjoying these episodes can now kind of jump over, convert, and listen to the daily stuff that I'll be putting out all season long, sometimes twice daily episodes. The goal is to continue to have at least seven episodes of the show per week. They won't all be daily breakdowns. Some of them are going to be buy lows, sell highs. There'll be, weekly preview type shows for folks that need to understand how to play their head-to-head leagues and strategic things. Now you're ready to graduate to that next rung, and I'm very happy to have you. Welcome you in with open arms. As Slickrock mentioned, the Discord is open. The link is in the show description. It's floating around in a bunch of different places as well. Make sure to like, rate, subscribe to all that stuff, and hit up Slick on the Twitters, because he'll get you covered there as well as in that Discord. Thanks for watching on this one, everybody. We'll have more episodes coming immediately here on this feed, including, but not limited to, my biggest preseason takeaways from all 30 teams. I'm Dan Bespris. He was Slickrock. This is Old Man Squad. That's where we're at. That's what we're doing. We are not necessarily old men, but that's how we draft our fantasy teams. See you guys later.